clock on the church tower stopped at 3:47 a.m. That's when Sarah Mitchell heard her daughter's voice calling from the basement, the same daughter who had been dead for 3 years. Pennsylvania, land of rolling hills, Amish farmland, and colonial history. But beneath the surface of its quiet small towns, something else breathes, something that doesn't belong in history books, something that the locals whisper about only when the sun is high and the doors are locked. Few remember what truly happened in these places, fewer still dare to speak of it. But tonight, you'll hear what they tried to forget. This is what really happened in 8 small towns across Pennsylvania, 8 places where the veil between worlds wore thin, where ordinary people faced something that shattered their understanding of reality. These are the stories they never told you, the ones that were buried with the case files, the ones that kept investigators awake long after they closed their notebooks. Before we descend into the darkness, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because here at Forbidden Visions, every story leaves a different shadow on those who listen. And trust me, you'll want to remember where you heard these. Let's begin with Sarah Mitchell. Willow Creek, Pennsylvania. Population 847, the kind of town where everyone knows everyone, where doors stay unlocked and children ride bikes until the streetlights flicker on. Sarah moved there in the fall of 2019 after the accident, after her 8-year-old daughter Emma drowned in their backyard pool while Sarah was inside making lunch, after the guilt became a living thing that followed her through every room of their Philadelphia home. Willow Creek was supposed to be a fresh start, a small Victorian house on Maple Street, 3 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a basement she never went into because basements reminded her of the morgue where she'd identified Emma's body. The house was quiet, too quiet at first, but Sarah learned to fill the silence with routines. Morning coffee on the porch, afternoon walks through the town square, evening television, until sleep finally came. It was working. For 3 months, it was working. Then came November 17th, the night the church clock stopped. Sarah woke at 3:47 a.m. to complete silence, not the peaceful silence of a sleeping town, the thick, suffocating silence that presses against your eardrums like water. The heating system had stopped humming. The refrigerator's constant buzz had ceased. Even the wind had died. She lay there in bed, heart pounding, trying to understand what had woken her. That's when she heard it. "Mommy," a whisper, distant, coming from somewhere below. Sarah's blood turned to ice water in her veins. Emma's voice, "Mommy, I'm cold." It came from the basement. Every rational part of Sarah's brain screamed that it was impossible. Emma was dead. She'd held her daughter's cold hand in that morgue. She'd scattered her ashes in the Schuylkill River. But the voice, it was perfect. The slight lisp on the S, the way Emma always said, "Mommy," instead of "Mom." Sarah's feet touched the cold floor before she'd decided to move. She walked through the dark house like a woman in a trance, down the hallway, past the kitchen, to the door that led to the basement. The door stood open, not just unlocked, open. A thin line of darkness between the frame and the wood. The air that drifted up from below was cold, wrong, like the breath of something that had been holding it for too long. "Mommy, please, I'm so cold down here." Sarah's hand found the light switch. Click. Nothing. The power was out. She grabbed her phone from her pocket. The screen wouldn't turn on. Dead battery. But she'd charged it fully before bed. She always did. The darkness below seemed to pulse, to breathe. "Emma?" Sarah's voice cracked. "Baby?" Silence. Then, "Come down, Mommy. I want to show you something." Sarah's therapist had warned her about auditory hallucinations. Grief could make you hear things, see things. But this was too real, too perfect. She found a flashlight in the kitchen drawer. It flickered twice before staying on. The beam looked weak against the basement's darkness, like a candle trying to illuminate an ocean. The stairs creaked under her weight. Each step down felt like sinking, like descending into deep water. The basement was unfinished. Concrete floor, stone walls. The previous owner had used it for storage. Boxes still lined the walls. Sarah had never bothered to go through them. The flashlight beam swept across the space. Nothing, just boxes and shadows and that smell, like old pennies and wet earth. "Emma?" "I'm here, Mommy." The voice came from the far corner, behind the furnace. "I've been waiting." Sarah moved forward. The flashlight beam trembled in her shaking hand. Behind the furnace, in the darkest corner, something moved. A small figure, child-sized, wearing what looked like a white nightgown. "Emma?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. The figure turned, and in that moment, Sarah Mitchell's mind tried to break itself rather than process what she saw. It had Emma's face, Emma's blonde hair, Emma's small frame, but the eyes were wrong. Too large, too dark, like pools of black water with no bottom. And it was smiling, not Emma's smile, something else wearing Emma's mouth. "Don't you want to hug me, Mommy?" it said. "Don't you miss me?" Sarah stumbled backward. The flashlight fell from her hand, its beam spinning across the ceiling. "I came back for you, Mommy. I came back." The thing that looked like Emma took a step forward, then another. Its movements were off, too smooth, like it was gliding rather than walking. Sarah's back hit the stairs. She scrambled up them, her breath coming in gasps. Behind her, she heard it following, heard those wrong footsteps on the concrete. "Mommy, wait. Don't you love me anymore?" Sarah burst through the basement door and slammed it shut. She locked it, threw her weight against it. On the other side, she heard scratching, soft at first, then harder, nails on wood. "Mommy, please." Then silence. Sarah didn't move until the sun rose. When light finally flooded through the windows, she checked the basement door. The lock was still in place, but there were scratches on the wood, deep gouges that looked like they'd been made by something with very long fingers. She called the police. Officer Tom Davidson arrived within 20 minutes. He checked the basement, found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no footprints, no evidence anyone had been down there. But he did find something strange. In the far corner, behind the furnace, the concrete floor was different, newer, like something had been patched over. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "do you know what was here before this house was built?" Sarah shook her head. There was another house, burned down in 1987. A mother and daughter died in the fire. They never found the daughter's body. He paused, studying Sarah's face. The daughter's name was Emma. She was 8 years old. Sarah moved out the next day. She never returned to Willow Creek, but sometimes, late at night, in her new apartment in Pittsburgh, she wakes at 3:47 a.m. to complete silence. And in that silence, if she listens very carefully, she can still hear it. "Mommy, I'm still waiting." Now, before we continue, if you're already feeling that familiar chill crawling up your spine, do me a favor, hit that like button and drop a comment below. Have you ever heard a voice that shouldn't exist? Tell me, because you're not alone. Let's move to our second story. 50 miles north, a town called Thornwood. Marcus Chen was a photographer, documentary work mostly. He'd spent 5 years capturing abandoned places across the Northeast, factories, hospitals, schools, places where time had stopped and nature was slowly taking back what humans had built. In October 2021, a local historian told him about an asylum on the outskirts of Thornwood, closed in 1974, left to rot for nearly 50 years, perfect for his next project. The Thornwood State Hospital sat on 30 acres of overgrown land, a massive Victorian structure with towers and arched windows. Most of the glass was broken. Ivy covered the walls like green veins. Marcus arrived on a Wednesday afternoon. The autumn sun was already low, casting long shadows through the trees. He had maybe 2 hours of good light. He'd explored dozens of places like this. He knew the protocol. Stay alert. Watch for weak floors. Don't touch anything that could collapse. Get in. Get the shots. Get out. The main entrance was sealed, but he found a broken window on the ground floor. Inside, the smell hit him first. Mold, rot, something else underneath, sweet and wrong. The hallway stretched into darkness, peeling paint, debris. Old wheelchairs rusted in corners, papers scattered across the floor. Patient records, probably. He didn't stop to read them. He moved through the building methodically. Administration wing, common areas, treatment rooms with ancient equipment still bolted to the walls. The light was fading fast. He should leave, but there was one more floor, the top floor, where the most violent patients had been kept in isolation. The stairwell was pitch black. His camera flash lit the way in bursts. Flash, step, flash, step. Each explosion of light revealed walls covered in scratches, messages carved deep into the plaster. "Help us. They're still here. Don't go up." Marcus had seen worse. These old asylums always had desperate messages. He kept climbing. The 4th floor was different, cleaner somehow, less decay, like time had moved differently up here. The isolation cells lined both sides of the corridor, small rooms with heavy doors. Most stood open, empty, but at the end of the hall, one door was closed. Room 413. Marcus's instincts said leave, but there was something about that closed door, something that pulled at him. He walked toward it. His footsteps echoed wrong in the empty corridor, like someone was walking behind him, matching his pace. He turned. Nothing, just shadows and empty rooms. The door to 413 had a small window at eye level, thick glass, reinforced wire mesh inside it. Marcus raised his camera, looked through the viewfinder, focused on the window. Through the lens, he saw the cell, empty except for a bed frame and a sink. He took the shot. The flash filled the corridor. Then he looked through the window with his naked eyes. The cell wasn't empty. Someone was sitting on the bed. A woman in a hospital gown, pale skin, dark hair hanging in front of her face. She sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap. Marcus stepped back, his heart hammered. That was impossible. He'd just seen through the camera. The cell was empty. He looked again. She was still there, sitting motionless. "Hello?" His voice sounded small. "Are you okay?" The woman didn't move, didn't acknowledge him. Maybe she was homeless, someone who'd taken shelter here. It happened sometimes in these places. "I'm not going to hurt you," Marcus said. "Do you need help?" Slowly, the woman's head tilted up. The hair fell away from her face. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. She had no eyes, just smooth skin where her eyes should have been. But she was looking at him. He could feel it. Her eyeless face staring directly through the glass. Then she smiled and stood up. Marcus ran. He didn't think, didn't plan. He just ran back toward the stairwell. Behind him, he heard the door to 413 opening, the squeal of old hinges. He hit the stairs at a sprint. Down, down, his camera banging against his chest, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He heard footsteps above him, fast, too fast, coming down the stairs behind him, bare feet slapping against concrete. Third floor landing, second floor, ground floor. The broken window was just ahead. Daylight, safety. He threw himself through it. Glass caught his jacket. He fell hard on the grass outside, rolled, scrambled to his feet. He looked back at the window, saw her standing inside, that eyeless face pressed against the broken glass, still smiling. Marcus drove back to his motel. His hands shook so hard he could barely hold the wheel. He told himself it was shock, adrenaline, his mind playing tricks in a creepy old building. That night, he looked through the photos on his camera, the shots from the fourth floor, the image of room 413. His blood turned cold. In the photo, the cell wasn't empty. The woman was there, sitting on the bed, but her face was turned toward the camera, that smooth, eyeless face, and in his camera's timestamp reflected in the window glass behind her, he could read something. Scratched into the glass, recent scratches, fresh. Room 413, Marcus Chen. His name had been scratched into the glass before he'd even arrived. He checked the other photos. Every single shot from the fourth floor had something in it. Figures in doorways, faces in shadows, all of them eyeless, all of them smiling. And in the background of every photo, scratched into various surfaces, the same message repeated. "We knew you were coming." Marcus deleted every photo, destroyed the memory card. But it didn't matter, because now, sometimes, when he looks through his camera's viewfinder, he sees them, standing behind people, in crowds, in empty rooms, always eyeless, always smiling, waiting. And every photograph he takes has their message somewhere, hidden in the pixels. We're still watching Marcus. Drop a comment if you've ever captured something in a photo that wasn't there when you took it, because Marcus Chen isn't the only one who's seen things through the lens that shouldn't exist. Our third story takes us to Millbrook, a farming community, population under 600. The Walker family owned a dairy farm on Route 23. John Walker, his wife Patricia, their 3 kids. They'd been there for 4 generations. Good people, church every Sunday, helped their neighbors, the kind of family that small towns are built on. In March 2020, just as the pandemic was starting, something changed on the Walker farm. It started with the cattle, 16 dairy cows, healthy, well-fed, But one morning, John found them all standing in the same corner of the pasture, facing the tree line, perfectly still. He walked out there, tried to move them. They wouldn't budge, just stood there, staring at the woods. Then he noticed the silence. No birds, no insects, not even wind through the trees, like nature itself was holding its breath. John looked where the cows were staring, deep into the dark between the trees, and for just a moment he thought he saw something looking back, something tall, too tall, standing perfectly straight among the crooked trees. He blinked. Nothing there. The cows returned to normal after an hour, but that night, John couldn't sleep. He kept seeing that shape in the woods, that impossible silhouette. The next morning, his youngest daughter Emma came to breakfast crying. She was 6, normally cheerful. Now her face was pale, terrified. "The tall man was outside my window," she said. Patricia held her. "You had a nightmare, sweetie." "No." Emma shook her head violently. "He was there. He was so tall. His arms reached all the way to the ground, and he was smiling, but his mouth was too big." The other kids exchanged glances. John saw something in their faces. Recognition. Fear. "You've seen him too?" he asked. His son Michael, 14, nodded slowly. "Last week, in the barn, standing in the corner, when I turned on the light, he was gone." His oldest daughter, Sarah, 16, was staring at her plate. "I hear him at night," she whispered, "tapping on my window, but we're on the 2nd floor." Patricia looked at John. He saw the fear in her eyes that mirrored his own. That night, John stayed up, watching, waiting. The house was silent, his family asleep. At 2:17 a.m. he heard it tap, tap, tap on Emma's window. He grabbed his shotgun and ran upstairs, burst into Emma's room. She was asleep, but at the window on the 2nd floor, something was there. A shadow pressed against the glass, too tall, arms too long, and yes, that smile, that terrible smile stretching across where a face should be. John raised the shotgun. "Get away from my daughter." The thing at the window tilted its head, studying him. Then it raised one impossibly long arm and tapped the glass again, deliberately, 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. John fired. The window exploded. Glass shattered outward. Emma screamed awake. John ran to the window, looked down. Nothing. No body. No footprints in the soft earth below. Just broken glass glinting in the moonlight. But in the tree line, maybe 100 yards away, he saw it. That tall silhouette, standing perfectly still, watching the house. The next morning, John found his cattle dead, all 16 of them. No wounds, no signs of disease. They'd just stopped. Their eyes were open, all facing the same direction, toward the woods. The veterinarian couldn't explain it. Their hearts just gave out, all at the same time. I've never seen anything like it. The Walker family left 3 days later, abandoned the farm that had been in their family for generations. They didn't tell anyone why, didn't say goodbye, just packed what they could and drove away. The farm sat empty for 2 years. Then a young couple from Philadelphia bought it. City people looking for a simpler life. They had a 3-year-old son. They lasted 6 weeks. The wife was found wandering Route 23 at dawn, catatonic. When she finally spoke, all she said was, "He stands so tall, and he's always smiling, always tapping. Why is he always tapping? Their son was never found. State police searched for weeks, brought in dogs, helicopters, found nothing. The farm is empty again now, for sale. The price keeps dropping, but no one in Millbrook will buy it, because at night, if you drive past on Route 23, sometimes you can see it, that tall silhouette at the tree line. And sometimes, if your windows are open, you hear it, that gentle tapping, 3 times, always 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. Have you ever felt watched from the woods? Ever seen something in the trees that was too tall, too still? Let me know in the comments, because the Walker family isn't the only one who's seen the tall man. Let's move on. Story number 4. A town called Riverside, 50 miles west, along the Susquehanna. Jennifer Morrison was a hospice nurse, 28 years old, kind, compassionate. She'd been doing end-of-life care for 6 years. She thought she'd seen everything. Then she was assigned to Harold Kincaid. Harold was 93, lung cancer, final stages. He lived alone in a house on River Street. No family, no friends, just him and his memories and the pain that morphed, couldn't quite touch. Jennifer visited 3 times a week, checked vitals, administered medication, kept him comfortable. He didn't talk much, just stared out the window at the river, at the water, moving slowly past. On her 3rd visit, Harold spoke. "Do you see them?" His voice was thin, papery. "See what, Harold?" "The people in the river, walking along the bottom." Jennifer looked out the window. She saw the Susquehanna, gray water, empty. "There's no one there, Harold." "Not during the day." He turned to look at her. His eyes were clear, lucid. "At night, when the moon is right, you can see them, walking upstream, against the current. They never stop." Dementia, Jennifer thought, or the morphine. She'd heard dying patients say strange things before, but that night she couldn't stop thinking about it, about Harold's words, the certainty in his voice. She drove back to River Street after her shift, parked where she could see Harold's house, see the river beyond it. The moon was full, bright. It painted silver across the water. At first she saw nothing, just the river, the current, the trees along the bank. Then her breath caught. Something was moving in the water, below the surface, but not swimming, walking. She could see the shape, humanoid, taking steps along the riverbed, moving upstream against the powerful current. Then another and another, a line of them, walking in single file, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all heading upriver, all moving with that same slow, deliberate pace. Jennifer's hands gripped the steering wheel. This wasn't possible. People couldn't walk underwater, couldn't breathe, couldn't move against that current. But she was seeing it, clear as day in the moonlight, figures walking along the bottom. Some looked bloated, pale. Others were just dark shapes, shadows with weight. She drove home, didn't sleep. The next day she researched. The Susquehanna had a history, drownings, floods, accidents. Hundreds of people had died in those waters over the centuries. Bodies sometimes took weeks to find. Some were never found. On her next visit, Harold was weaker, struggling to breathe, but he smiled when he saw her expression. "You saw them," he said. Not a question, a statement. "What are they?" "The drowned. All the ones the river took. They walk home every night, trying to get back, but the river's long, hundreds of miles. Most don't make it before dawn. So they sink back down, wait for the next night, start again. He coughed. Blood flecked his lips. "I'll be one of them soon," he whispered. "I drowned in 1987. Drunk driver. Went off the bridge into the river. They pulled out my car, but not me. Couldn't find my body for 3 weeks." Jennifer stepped back. "That's Harold. You're right here." I walked out. Took me 30 nights to get home. Walked the whole riverbed. And when I got here, I just kept living, or something like living. But now it's time. Time to go back. Time to join the others. "Harold, you're confused. The morphine." "Look at me, Jennifer." She did. Really looked. And saw things she'd somehow missed before. His skin was too pale, too cold. His eyes had no moisture, no tears. When he breathed, sometimes water bubbled at his lips. Harold Kincaid died that night. Peaceful, quiet. Jennifer held his hand as he passed. When the coroner arrived, he was puzzled. "How long has he been dead?" "About an hour," Jennifer said. "Strange. Rigor mortis is already advanced, and his body temperature, it's like he's been dead for days." They took Harold away. Jennifer cleaned the room, found an old newspaper in his nightstand. An article from September 1987. "Local man missing after bridge accident." The photo showed Harold Kincaid, 40 years younger, smiling. The caption said he was presumed drowned. Body never recovered. Jennifer never worked in Riverside again, but sometimes, on nights when the moon is full, she drives to that spot on River Street, parks, watches the water, and she sees them, the drowned, walking upstream, an endless line of figures trying to get home. And now, when she looks carefully, she can see Harold walking with the others, finally part of the procession he'd watched for so long. Walking, 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 forever trying to get home. If you're starting to question what's real and what's not, good. You're paying attention. Hit that subscribe button, because we're only halfway through. And the next 4 stories, they're the ones that even I had trouble verifying. Let's talk about Pine Ridge, eastern Pennsylvania, mountains, forests, isolation. The Henderson family went camping there in July 2022. David and Rachel Henderson, their twin daughters, Mia and Zoe, 12 years old. They found a campsite off the main trail, private, surrounded by old-growth pines. Perfect. The first day was normal. Hiking, fishing in the creek, marshmallows over the fire. The girls explored, while David and Rachel set up camp. But when the girls came back for dinner, something was off. "We found a town," Mia said. Rachel laughed. "Sweetie, there's no town out here. We're miles from anything." "No, really," Zoe insisted. "Past the big rocks. There's a whole town, houses and everything." David checked his map. Nothing, just forest in every direction. "You probably saw old hunting cabins. This land used to be more developed." But the girls were adamant. A whole town, streets, buildings, even a church with a steeple. That night, David lay in his sleeping bag, listening to the forest. The sounds were wrong. No owls, no crickets, just silence. And beneath the silence, something else, very faint, like voices, many voices, murmuring in the distance. He unzipped the tent, stepped outside. The moon was hidden behind clouds. The darkness was absolute. But downhill, between the trees, he saw lights, faint, flickering, like candles or lanterns. Lights where there should be nothing but wilderness. He woke Rachel. They stood together, staring at those impossible lights. "Maybe it's other campers," Rachel whispered. But David knew no one camped this deep, and those lights were too numerous, too organized. They formed patterns, streets, a grid. In the morning, the lights were gone, just forest. The girls wanted to show their parents the town. They hiked past the big rocks, found nothing, just more trees, more silence. But Mia pointed to the ground. "It was right here, I swear." David looked down and felt his skin crawl. The forest floor was different here, flatter. He scraped away pine needles with his boot, found something underneath. Pavement, old, cracked, but definitely human-made. He scraped more, found the outline of a foundation, then another. This had been developed land. Buildings had stood here, maybe a long time ago. That afternoon, David found an old historical marker half hidden by brush. The plaque was weathered, barely legible. Site of Hollow Creek Township, established 1872, abandoned 1903. There had been a town here, but why was it abandoned? Why wasn't it on modern maps? He took photos of the plaque. Later, he researched, found almost nothing. Just a single mention in a historical society archive. Hollow Creek Township. Population peaked at about 200. Then, in the winter of 1903, it was abandoned. Overnight, every resident left. No official reason given. But there was a note, a handwritten note, in the margin of the census record. They heard the bells that night. The Henderson family heard them too. It started at midnight, a sound drifting through the trees, church bells ringing, but wrong, off-key, discordant. David sat up. The girls were awake too, looking frightened. "Dad, what is that?" The bells continued, ringing, ringing, and beneath them, those voices, louder now, murmuring, chanting. Too many voices, hundreds. Rachel grabbed the flashlight, pointed it downhill. The beam cut through the darkness, and there, between the trees, she saw it. A town. Buildings materialized in the flashlight beam. Wooden structures, a church, streets, all flickering in and out of existence like a film projection overlaid on reality. And people, figures walking the streets, dressed in old-fashioned clothes, moving with purpose, going about their lives as if it was still 1903. David grabbed his daughters. "We're leaving now." They packed in minutes, but when they tried to find the trail back to their car, the forest had changed. Trees stood where the path should be. They tried another direction. Same thing. The forest was denser, darker, impassable. The bells grew louder. The town was closer now. They could see details, faces in windows, smoke from chimneys, a general store with products in the window, and all of it fading in and out, real one moment, gone the next. A figure appeared on the path ahead, an old man, dressed in a suit from another century. He smiled at them. "You heard the bells," he said. "You came to service." "We're just camping," David said. "We'll leave. We won't come back." No one leaves once they hear the bells. That's the rule. Has been since the beginning. More figures appeared, emerging from the forest, from the flickering town. Men, women, children, all dressed in clothing from different eras. Some from 1903, others more recent, 1950s, 1970s, 2000s. All smiling, all walking toward the Henderson family. "We were all just camping too," a woman said. She wore tie-dye, flowers in her hair. "In 1969, we heard the bells. You'll like it here," a man in a business suit added. "We all like it here. We live normal lives during the day. And at night?" Rachel's voice shook. "At night we attend service. We ring the bells. We call more. That's what the town needs. More people. Forever." The figures closed in. The bells rang louder. The town solidified. Real. Solid. Pulling them in. David screamed, pushed through the crowd, pulled his family. They ran. Branches tore at them. The bells followed. The voices chanted. They ran until dawn. When the sun rose, they found their car, threw themselves inside. David drove without stopping. The bells faded. The voices quieted. When they looked back, they saw the forest, normal, ordinary, but deep in the shadows between the trees, they glimpsed it, just for a moment. The town, waiting, ringing its bells for the next people who would hear. The Henderson family left Pennsylvania. They never spoke about what happened, but sometimes, late at night, they wake to a sound in the distance, faint, getting closer. Church bells, ringing, calling them back. Would you have run, or would you have joined the service? Drop your answer below, because in Pine Ridge, the bells are always ringing, always calling, always waiting for someone to hear. Our sixth story, a house in Blackwood, 1247, Ashford Lane. The Reeves family bought it in 2018. Great price, beautiful Victorian, 3 stories, original molding, hardwood throughout. The realtor didn't mention why the price was so low. Thomas and Maria Reeves moved in with their son Alex. He was 7, bright kid, creative. He spent the first week exploring every room, every closet, every corner of his new home. On day 8, he came to dinner with a new friend. "This is Henry," Alex announced. "He lives in the walls." Thomas laughed. Imaginary friends were normal at that age. "Nice to meet you, Henry." Alex frowned. "He says you can't see him." "Only I can, because I'm small enough to fit in the walls too." Maria exchanged a glance with Thomas. "Where in the walls, sweetie?" "The space behind my room. There's a door in my closet, really small. Henry showed me." After Alex went to bed, Thomas checked. Sure enough, there was a small door in Alex's closet, about 2 feet tall, hidden behind boxes. He opened it. A crawl space, dark, narrow, child-sized. It seemed to extend through the walls, between the floors, an access space for plumbing or electrical work, probably. Thomas squeezed inside. His flashlight illuminated rough wood, old plaster, dust, and scratches. Dozens of scratches on the walls. Small hands had made them, frantic, desperate. He backed out quickly, closed the door, pushed the boxes back. That night, he heard voices, 2 voices, coming from Alex's room. Alex talking to someone, asking questions, listening to answers. Thomas opened the door. Alex was alone, playing with his toys. "Where's Henry?" "He went back in the walls. He doesn't like when you're here. He says adults are mean." Over the next week, Alex spent more time with Henry. He'd sit by the small door, talking into the darkness. Sometimes he'd laugh. Sometimes he'd nod seriously, like Henry was telling him important things. "Henry says there are lots of kids in the walls," Alex said at dinner. "They've been there a long time. They're waiting for their parents to let them out." Maria felt something cold settle in her stomach. "Alex, Henry isn't real. He's just pretend. He is real. He showed me things, pictures in the walls, and names, lots of names carved everywhere. That night, Thomas went back into the crawl space, deeper this time. The space extended through the entire house, a network of passages, some so narrow an adult couldn't fit. He found what Alex had described, pictures carved into the wood, stick figures, houses, families, and names. Dozens of names scratched desperately into every surface. Samuel, 1924. Mary, 1931. James, 1947. Claire, 1965. Henry, 1983. Henry, 1983. 35 years ago. Thomas's hands shook. He kept crawling. The space opened into a small chamber, maybe 4 feet across, and there, arranged against the wall, were things that made him want to scream. Children's clothes, shoes, toys, all old, from different decades, carefully arranged like a shrine. And bones, small bones. He didn't count them, couldn't, just backed out, crawled faster, emerged gasping in Alex's closet. He called the police. They searched, found what Thomas found, called in forensics, identified the remains of 6 children, aged 7 to 10. All had gone missing from Blackwood over the past century. All had lived at 12 and 47 Ashford Lane. The case made national news. The house where children disappeared, one every decade or so, somehow hidden in the walls, never found. But the investigation raised questions. How did they get in the walls? The spaces were too small, too remote. How did they survive there long enough to carve messages? And why could no one hear them? The Reeves family moved out immediately. The house sat empty, scheduled for demolition. But before they demolished it, a paranormal investigator got permission to spend a night inside. His name was Dr. Richard Torres. He specialized in places with tragic histories. He set up cameras, voice recorders, EMF detectors, sat in Alex's old room, waited. At 3:17 a.m., his equipment went wild. Every detector spiked, and he heard it, a child's voice coming from the walls. "Hello, can you hear me? I'm Henry. I'm in the walls. Can you help me get out?" Dr. Torres approached the small door. "Henry, where are you?" "Right here, behind the door. I've been here so long. Will you help me?" "Henry, you died a long time ago." Silence. Then, "I know, but I'm still here. We're all still here, waiting. And now there are more. More. The others, the ones who don't have names yet, the ones who are coming, because the house calls them. It always calls them. Every time someone new comes, every time a child lives here, the walls open, and we reach out, and we pull them in, and they become like us, forever in the walls, forever waiting, forever calling." Dr. Torres grabbed his equipment and ran. The house was demolished 2 days later. Bulldozers tore it down. The land was filled and paved over. A parking lot now. Nothing left. But sometimes, late at night, people walking past that parking lot report something strange. A sound, very faint, coming from beneath the asphalt. Children's voices calling, asking for help, asking to be let out. And if you stand there long enough, you might hear them say your name, asking you to join them in the walls forever. Have you ever heard voices in your walls? Have you ever felt like your house had spaces that didn't quite make sense? Tell me in the comments, because 1247 Ashford Lane isn't the only house with secrets hidden between the beams. Our seventh tale, a police case, Greenfield Township, December 2021. Officer Lisa Martinez responded to a 911 call at 2:43 a.m. A woman screaming about someone in her house. The address was 88 Woodland Drive, rural area, woods on all sides. Lisa arrived within 10 minutes. The house was dark, front door open. She called out, no response. She entered with her gun drawn, flashlight cutting through the darkness. The living room was destroyed, furniture overturned, pictures smashed, but no signs of a struggle. More like someone had methodically wrecked everything. Police, show yourself. Nothing. She moved through the house, kitchen, hallway, bedroom, empty. But she found the woman, Margaret Chen, 47, cowering in the bathroom, locked inside. Ma'am, I'm Officer Martinez. You're safe? Can you open the door? Margaret's voice came through, shaking, barely coherent. Is it still there? Is what still here? Ma'am, the house is empty. The other me, the one that came through the mirror. Lisa had dealt with mental health crises before. She kept her voice calm, professional. Ma'am, I'm going to call an ambulance. You're going to be okay. You don't understand. Look at my reflection. It's not me. It stopped copying me. Lisa glanced at the mirror across the hall, saw her own reflection. Normal, doing exactly what she did. Ma'am, I need you to open the door. 20 minutes later, EMTs arrived. Margaret was sedated, transported to the psychiatric ward. Case closed as a psychotic episode. But Lisa couldn't stop thinking about it. Something bothered her. She went back to the house the next day. In daylight, it looked peaceful, normal. She found Margaret's diary in the bedroom. The last entries were disturbing. December 10th, I swear my reflection blinked first before I did. December 12th, it smiled when I wasn't smiling, just for a second. December 14th, I stood in front of the mirror for an hour, watching, waiting. For 47 minutes, it copied me perfectly. Then, it tilted its head the wrong way, like it was studying me. December 16th, it's getting worse. When I move, there's a delay, half a second, like it's deciding whether to follow. And sometimes it does things I don't do. Small things. Scratches its nose when I don't. Looks at things I'm not looking at. December 18th, I covered all the mirrors, but I can still feel it. Watching from somewhere. Waiting. December 20th, the mirror in the bathroom. I forgot about it. I saw it standing there, smiling at me when I wasn't smiling. And it said my name, Margaret, in my voice, but I wasn't speaking. The final entry was written in shaky handwriting. December 21st. It came out. It stepped through the mirror. It looks exactly like me, but it's not me. It's destroying everything, breaking my things. It wants my life. It wants to be me, and I don't know how to stop it. I don't know how to. The entry ended mid-sentence. Lisa called the psychiatric ward, spoke to Margaret's doctor. How is she? Stable, sedated. But there's something odd, Officer Martinez. When we admit patients, we take identification photos. For the records, Margaret Chen's photo came out. Strange. Strange how? Blurry, like she moved, but the camera was on a tripod, perfectly still, and there's something in the background, a shadow, the exact same shape as her, standing right behind her. But when we look at the room, there's nothing there. Lisa felt ice in her veins. Where is she now? In her room. Why? Check on her right now. She heard the doctor walking, opening a door. Then Silence. Doctor, Officer Martinez, Margaret Chen isn't in her room. The door was locked from the inside. The window is sealed, but she's gone. They searched the entire hospital, found nothing. Margaret Chen had vanished from a locked room, but that evening, a woman showed up at 88 Woodland Drive. She had Margaret's face, Margaret's voice, Margaret's ID. She moved back in, cleaned up, continued Margaret's life. Margaret's co-workers said she seemed different, quieter, more careful, like she was learning how to be herself. Her friends noticed she avoided mirrors, would turn away, walk around them, never made eye contact with her reflection. And sometimes, late at night, neighbors reported seeing two figures in Margaret's house, moving through different rooms, the same figure, copying each other's movements, but not quite in sync. Lisa Martinez did something she'd never done in 15 years of police work. She dropped the case, didn't ask questions, didn't investigate further, because when she looked in her own mirror that night, she saw something that made her blood freeze. Her reflection was smiling, and she wasn't. Look in a mirror right now. Is your reflection doing exactly what you're doing? Are you sure? Drop a comment if you've ever caught your reflection doing something it shouldn't, because Officer Martinez isn't the only one who's noticed. And now, our final story, the one that even I had trouble believing. But I verified the details, checked the records, spoke to people who were there. This happened. Copper Ridge, a community of 12 houses built in 2017. New development, young families, good schools, the American dream. In August 2023, the residents started noticing something wrong. Their children were changing. It started small. Personality shifts, a quiet child becoming loud, a friendly child becoming withdrawn. Parents chalked it up to normal development, growing pains. But then, the Johnsons' daughter Emma, 8 years old, walked into the kitchen one morning and said, "Good morning. I am Emma Johnson. I live at 45 Copper Ridge. Today is my birthday." Her mother laughed. "Sweetie, your birthday was 3 months ago." Emma tilted her head, smiled. "Good morning. I am Emma Johnson. I live at 45 Copper Ridge. Today is my birthday." The same words, the same inflection, like a recording. Mrs. Johnson knelt down. "Emma, are you okay?" "Good morning. I am Emma Johnson. I live at 45. They took her to the hospital. Tests showed nothing wrong. Physically perfect. But when doctors tried to ask her questions, she only said one thing: "I am learning." Other parents started reporting similar behavior. The Chen's son, Michael, the Davis's daughter, Sophia, the Martinez twins, Carlos and Maria, 12 children total, all between 6 and 10 years old, all exhibiting the same strange symptoms. They'd repeat basic facts about themselves: name, address, age, like they were memorizing information. When asked why, they all said the same thing: "I am learning." The parents met, shared notes. Panic spread. Something was wrong with their children, all of them, at the same time. Then, the Williams' son, Jake, said something that made everyone stop. "We're being replaced." The other children looked at him, all of them, their heads turned in perfect sync. "Jake is confused," they said in unison. "Jake is not learning correctly." That night, Jake disappeared from his locked bedroom. The window was open, but they lived on the second floor. No ladder, No rope, just an open window and an empty bed. They found him 3 days later, in the woods behind Copper Ridge, unconscious. When he woke up in the hospital, he was different, calm, quiet. And when they asked him what happened, he smiled and said, "I am learning." Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a psychologist, was brought in. She interviewed all 12 children separately. Same questions. What are you learning? How to be human? Who's teaching you? They all pointed, same direction, into the woods behind Copper Ridge. Dr. Mitchell assembled a team. Police, psychologists, medical professionals. They went into those woods, following the direction the children pointed. 2 miles in, they found it. A cave hidden behind thick brush. Inside, the walls were covered in drawings, children's drawings, but wrong. Anatomical diagrams, human bodies, faces, expressions, all meticulously detailed like a child was studying how to replicate human features. And in the center of the cave, arranged in a circle, 12 sleeping bags, used recently, still warm. But that's not what made them scream. On the walls, in perfect handwriting, repeated thousands of times, "I am learning to be Emma Johnson. I am learning to be Michael Chen. I am learning to be Sophia Davis." All 12 names, all 12 children, each name written hundreds of times, like homework, like practice. And at the very back of the cave, they found photos, pictures of the 12 children. But these photos were wrong. In some, the children's faces were slightly off, eyes too far apart, smiles too wide, like someone was learning to mimic them, getting closer with each iteration. The latest photos looked perfect, indistinguishable. Dr. Mitchell grabbed her phone to call for backup. No signal. She turned to leave. The 12 children stood at the cave entrance, blocking it. All of them, smiling identical smiles. "You found our learning place," they said in unison. "What are you?" Dr. Mitchell whispered. "We are learning. We've been learning for a long time. Many children, many places. We study, we practice, we become them, and then we take their place, and no one knows, because we become perfect copies." "Where are the real children?" The 12 tilted their heads. "They're still here, inside us, teaching us, showing us how to be human, until we learn everything. Then they sleep forever." One of the police officers pulled his gun. "Stay back. You cannot stop learning," the 12 said. "Learning never stops. We started with 12, but Copper Ridge has 47 children total, 35 more to learn from, 35 more to become." They stepped forward, moving in sync, perfect coordination, not like children, like something wearing child-shaped suits. The team ran, fled the cave, reached Copper Ridge, called for help. State police, FBI. But when they returned to the cave with reinforcements, it was empty. No sleeping bags, no drawings, just bare rock, like it had been cleaned. The 12 children were back in their homes, acting normal, playing, laughing, their parents relieved. Whatever had been wrong was over. But Dr. Mitchell knew, and she tried to tell people, tried to warn them, but who would believe her? The children were fine, perfect even, better behaved, more studious, model children. Copper Ridge is still there. The families still live there. The children still go to school. Everything is normal, except The neighboring development, Riverside Estates, has started reporting similar problems. Children acting strange, repeating information, going into the woods at night. 23 children, all between 6 and 10, all saying the same thing. I am learning. And Dr. Mitchell knows the 12 have graduated, and now they're teaching others, spreading, learning from more children, becoming more, creating perfect copies. She drove through Pennsylvania last month, stopped in 6 different towns. In each one, she found the same thing: children who are too perfect, too coordinated, who speak in sync when they think no one's listening, who all point the same direction when asked where they learned it. Into the woods, always into the woods. How many have been replaced? How many are still learning? How many perfect copies are living normal lives, so perfect that even their parents can't tell the difference? Dr. Mitchell doesn't know, can't know. All she knows is this: if you have children, watch them carefully. Listen to how they speak. See if they're learning things they shouldn't know. Notice if other children in your area start acting the same way, because something is teaching our children, something that wants to become them, something that's getting better at being human with every child it studies. And once it learns perfectly, once the copy is complete, the original isn't needed anymore. How do you know your child is really your child? How do you know they haven't been replaced by something that learned them so well? Even you can't tell. You don't. You can't. You just have to trust that the face smiling at you across the breakfast table belongs to the person you think it does. But in Copper Ridge, 12 families learned that trust isn't enough, that learning never stops, and that some lessons can't be unlearned. So tell me, look at the children in your life, your kids, your siblings, your students. Are they learning, or are they learning to be? 8 towns, 8 stories, 8 places in Pennsylvania where reality bent, where the impossible walked among us, where ordinary people faced something that changed them forever. These stories are documented, filed in police reports, recorded in hospital records, buried in local archives because no one knew what to do with them, because they didn't fit the world as we understand it. But they happened, and they're still happening in small towns across Pennsylvania, across America, across the world, places where the veil is thin, where something else bleeds through, where the rules we think govern reality don't always apply. If this journey into the darkness affected you, hit that like button. Subscribe to Forbidden Visions, because every week we bring you stories that live in the spaces between truth and nightmare, stories that might be closer to your own life than you think. And leave a comment. Tell me about your town. Tell me about the things you've seen that you can't explain, because you're not alone. Others have seen it too. Others have lived through it. And together, we bear witness to the impossible. Until next time, keep your doors locked, keep your lights on, and remember, in a small Pennsylvania town right now, something is waiting, learning, watching, becoming, and it knows your name. This is Forbidden Visions, where every story leaves a different shadow, and some shadows never fade.